For decades, visa restrictions were something African travelers quietly endured. Long queues, high rejection rates, limited access. But in late 2025, something changed. For the first time in modern diplomatic history, African countries began openly restricting American travelers, not as protest but as policy. This shift did not come out of nowhere. It was triggered by a major expansion of United States travel and visa restrictions, targeting dozens of countries worldwide, many of them in Africa. What followed was a rare moment of reciprocity, sovereignty, and geopolitical pushback. Before we get into it, kindly like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so yet. In December 2025, the United States government announced a significant expansion of its travel restriction framework. Under this policy, nearly 40 countries were placed under new or tightened travel controls. The restrictions were divided into two categories. The first was a full travel ban, where most new U.S. visas would no longer be issued to citizens of affected countries. The second was a partial restriction, which limited certain visa categories such as tourist, business, student, or immigrant visas, often with shorter validity periods or stricter vetting. Among the countries facing the strictest measures were Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso. Several others, including Nigeria, Senegal, Angola, Gambia, Tanzania, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, were placed under partial restrictions. According to U.S. authorities, the criteria for these decisions included security concerns, identity verification challenges, and visa overstay statistics. The policy was scheduled to take effect on January 1, 2026. But African governments did not wait. The first major response came from Niger. On December 23, 2025, Niger's government announced a complete suspension of visa issuance to U.S. citizens. The ban applies across all categories: tourism, business, diplomatic, and official travel. Nigerian officials stated clearly that the move was based on the principle of reciprocity. If Nigerian citizens could no longer freely travel to the United States, then American citizens would face the same restriction when traveling to Niger. This decision was particularly significant. Niger has historically maintained security and counterterrorism cooperation with the United States. The visa ban marked a decisive shift from quiet diplomacy to assertive sovereign policy. Just days later, two more countries followed. On December 31, 2025, Mali and Burkina Faso announced reciprocal measures against the United States. Both countries confirmed that American citizens would now face the same travel conditions imposed on their nationals by U.S. policy. In practical terms, this meant restricted or suspended access for U.S. travelers. Mali's foreign ministry stated that the decision was grounded in equal treatment of states under international law. Burkina Faso echoed the same position, emphasizing that visa policy is a sovereign right, not a favor granted by powerful nations. These announcements marked one of the rare moments where multiple African states coordinated a direct response to Western immigration restrictions. Beyond outright bans, other African countries took more measured, but still strategic, steps. Earlier in 2025, Mali introduced high-value visa bonds for U.S. travelers, in some cases ranging from $5,000 to $10,000. These bonds were designed as mirror policies, reflecting the financial and procedural hurdles African travelers face when applying for U.S. visas. Meanwhile, countries like Ghana pursued a different strategy. Rather than retaliating directly, Ghana expanded visa-free travel agreements with countries in the global south, including Colombia, Mozambique, Dominica, and São Tomé and Príncipe. The goal was to reduce dependency on Western travel corridors and strengthen South-South mobility. This approach signaled a broader recalibration of global travel partnerships. The implications of these actions are substantial. Visa restrictions affect more than tourism. They influence trade, investment, education, diplomacy, and people-to-people relations. Reduced mobility can slow business deals, limit academic exchange, and weaken diplomatic engagement. For the United States, reciprocal bans complicate diplomatic access and regional engagement. For African nations, these moves represent a growing willingness to assert equality in international relations, even when dealing with major global powers. There is also a wider geopolitical context. Many of the countries imposing restrictions, including Niger, Mali, and Burkina Faso, have recently redefined their foreign policy priorities. They are diversifying partnerships, strengthening regional alliances, and reducing reliance on traditional Western frameworks. Visa policy has become a tool, not just of migration control, but of diplomatic signaling. As of the end of 2025, the situation remains unresolved. U.S. travel restrictions are scheduled to formally take effect in early 2026. African visa bans and reciprocal measures are already active. Diplomatic discussions continue, but public statements from African governments emphasize sovereignty, dignity, and mutual respect, rather than concession. What is clear is this: visa policy is no longer a one-way street. For the first time in years, African nations are responding in kind, reshaping the rules of global mobility, and signaling that access must be mutual, not assumed. That is all for today's video. Kindly like, comment, and share. Also subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon to get notified anytime a new video is up.